Welcome to the Beauties and Beasties podcast with Alex and Sean.
Hello.
Mandy Hagar wins this week, and then Fish for London comes in second best. Yeah, second's the first loser. You'll have to be quicker next week, Fish for London.
You know what they say, though? It's the early bird that gets the worm, but it's going to be the second mouse that gets the cheese.
Ooh.
Yes.
That
That's some very deep-seated philosophy for you there. Oh, we've got a lot of folks on early today. I think this might be
the
something
second man who gets picked by the dog, though, isn't it?
I've not heard that one.
Yeah.
I mean, that must be from your gamekeeping days, I can only assume.
No, policeman days. So when you ran into a house on an early morning dawn raid, usually the dog would be flat out asleep. First man would run past it. Second man, the dog would lock onto. So it was second man who got bit by the dog.
Make sure you're the third man, or preferably the guy who's just by the squad car being like, I've got you covered, guys. That's all good. There we go.
I don't know
How
if you believe this or not, I was always first man in. Always. I was always at front of the queue. We're doing all right. I do apologise to anybody if they think I've been quiet or what have you this week. In any sort of correspondence, I've just had a manic week. And next week's probably going to be the same. I've got a job which I'd like to tell you all about at some point. It's probably not the best job in the world. In fact, I fucked up massively, but it's a drain job and it's not for tonight. But I believe it's important to tell people about the fuck ups as well as the wins. And this is a royal fuck up. Like could lose your business fuck up.
Oh no!
Listen. Turned out okay, and everything was done in the right thing. But I have some good friends to ask advice from, and there was a few. I don't even want to say squeaky bum moments because that doesn't really put into. But we'll keep it for another day, and you will hear about it. So
ladies and gentlemen, right. I think that's what we call a hook, isn't it? Come back next week. That's a cliffhanger.
No, you could listen. I promise you. It's a drain job. We'll try and get Davey on to talk about it because it is absolutely. We've learned a lot from it, and I think a lot of pest controllers have learned a lot from it because to say it's been stressful has been an underestimation.
Okay. Well, I mean, and again, it's good that we have all of these contacts, and the industry is a small industry, so being able to lean out and or reach out and lean on the expertise of others is really where it shines. I mean, imagine if you were in isolation and you'd screwed up. Who would if you had no one to turn to, what would have happened with that situation?
Oh, no, fucking clue. Well, so long and short of it is, it turned out okay kind of on its own, but when I honestly, I'm not going to go into it, but you'll see very quickly that those contacts are the people that you needed to be able to ring and speak to for definite. If for no other reason, just to calm you down. Do you know what I mean?
you would be surprised, actually, and there will be folks listening to this who have done just this. I will get phone calls all the time from pest controllers just phoning up being like, I know what the answer is. I just need to hear you say what the answer is, just so I'm not going mad. And those phone calls are all the time. And I'm not mad for 1 second, when someone phones up. I would rather, have 10 calls in a day saying, can you tell me a blinding glimpse of the Blinding obvious, just because I need that affirmation, rather than that 1 in 10 times when someone turns around and is just like, you know what, I'll blunder through and something goes wrong, for the sake of a 15-second phone call, just to have someone say, you know what, I think I know what I'm doing, but could you just sort of just make sure? It's worth its weight, isn't it? And it costs me nothing. It costs you nothing. It's what we need to do. Small industry. We just need to make sure that we use the tools available to us. We talk about using our tools. the industry community is a tool that we all must make sure that we make the best use of. And yeah, as Hugh says, working alone can be lonely. It's why we started up the Pest Managers networking chats on a Friday. It's why my phone is always on. It's why, you know, when I make that transition across to BSF, my personal phone, I'm not going to, you know, change the number or delete the number on it. It'll still be there. If people still need to phone up for a chat, or people still need to phone up for a bit of candid advice, it'll be on.
£50, I know.
Yeah, I'm going to change, you know, become a sort of like premium rate line, and I will answer with a husky voice. I'll probably get more people phoning me up that way, to be fair. Hello, what can we do about your pests today?
Yeah, you'll probably get the police ringing you up, but there you go.
Well, that it's, as long as they pay, it doesn't matter, does it?
So we've had a little, me and Alex have spoke about this episode for about 10 seconds before we come on. We both know it's going to be heavy. We both know we're going to give our opinions on stuff. We both know that people are going to agree and not agree. We both know it's going to be emotive. Please don't be a dick. Like, listen to what's said. Make your own minds up. It's not a fight. It's not an argument. It's people discussing it. It might get heated. It might become a strong debate. Please don't be falling out with anyone over it. It's just fucking bees. You know, like, it's just bees. It's not the end of the world. We're just trying to get the conversation started so you can make your own mind up, and then you are responsible for your own behaviour. That being said, give us your thoughts on it, Al.
Oh, well, should we introduce what it is first? Because we're going to have some people who are listening back to this. We're going to have some people who are not on live, wondering why we are giving this huge, great big preamble to this. So what we're going to talk about tonight is, as you say, it's a very emotive subject. It's around bee management. Okay, and I'm going to use the word bee management because there is more to managing. There's more to the subject of bees and pest controllers than, you know, cutouts. There's more to subjects of bee and pest controllers than there is to simply just killing them. It's actually quite it's a very long history of our relationship with bees, as can be seen with the fact that if you to speak to a lot of people outside of the industry, they have a very closed view of it. In fact, there was a post that went up on the forums only a couple of days ago where a gentleman had said, hey, you know, that if you ever see a swarm of bees, the last thing you should do is call pest control. And that's put a lot of people's backs up. But with that, it is something we need to discuss because it is something that hits on our radar. It is something where, you know, it's one of those classic situations. If you ask 10 pest controllers, you'll get 11 different opinions. And I think we need to discuss all of them. And that being said, actually, if there is anyone who is really sort of like vehement or really, really wants to have their say and they feel like tapping it out on the keyboard isn't enough, what we'll do is what I can do is I can put, or Hugh is going to send me a message in the private chat in a minute, will give us the link to the green room here. So if you really want to come on and have your say and you want to sit aside Sean and I and, you know, have your 5 minutes up on your podium, do it. Okay. We'll put it out there. We'll be able to see you in the green room and we'll be able to bring you up. So if you feel like putting your money where your proverbials are, the doors will be open tonight for that. Okay. And Hugh, who is listening, and I know, is going to just send me an email in a minute with the link because I can't do it right now. and that's where that'll go. But yes, so I'm not going to launch in with my views. I'm going to actually defer across to you to begin with, because you are, you know, you are a company that deals quite heavily with bees, are you not? And yeah. So give us your opening salvo.
So for everyone who doesn't know us, we are a firm that sometime, I don't know, it's probably about 5-6 years ago, we started looking at removing honeybees. We've put a lot of time and effort into it, a lot of money into it, and a lot of time training into it. We do probably what most people would consider to be a lot of bee removals on a yearly basis. And we have in-house sort of skills, builders, scaffolders, etc. I would like to think that we are one of the, I'm not going to say better, but more experienced firms in terms of removing bees from buildings. I don't think at this moment in time there is a way that we can correctly euthanize honeybees with chemicals as the situation stands. That being said, and for anybody listening to this, please listen to this bit carefully from me to you. I do not care one iota if you kill honeybees. I don't give a shit. I don't care. It's your business. You do what you want when you want. I could tell you all the reasons why we do and all the reasons why we don't, but ultimately I'm not telling you what to do. Do what you want. I don't care if you kill honeybees. Please do not shout at me saying that I have this major thing about it. I'm not. I'm just going to tell you my number one concern and my number one gripe and my number one criticism of the industry is of the manufacturers and the distributors who tell you that it can be done, but refuse to tell you how to do it. And I'm sure we're going to get into this throughout the podcast, so I'm not going to spoil it now, but that's where I stand on it. Al, where do you stand on it?
So my view is, and has been for some time, that honeybees are a beneficial insect, okay, right up until the point that they're not. And when they become non-beneficial, when they wander into the realms of pests, then they become our purview to deal with. And with that, we have a responsibility, a duty of care to do something about them. Now, with that, I believe that 999 times out of 1,000, you will be able to remove those bees. Now, when I say remove those bees, I don't necessarily mean that you have to remove and relocate them. Sometimes it is necessary potentially to remove those bees and to euthanize them offsite for another reason. But most of the time we are removing the bees. There is, however, an occasion where bees in situ will need to be controlled for public health reasons when they present a uncontrollable risk to human health. Okay, and when you say, oh, what possible risk could there be to human health? Well, imagine you have a set of feral honeybees, for example, that have set up shop in the walls of a hospital, you know, somewhere where there are people who are bedbound, who can't move, ICU units, maternity units, anywhere like that. And I'm taking an extreme example here because we are talking about extremes. Now, what happens if that colony starts to go aggressive, starts to go rogue? What happens then? Do you have the opportunity to do a swift cutout? No, because you can't move the people the other side of that wall. If it all starts to go wrong, there is a lot of people who are already at risk who are going to be put under greater pressure at that point. So we do need to have that latitude, in my opinion. However, I believe that most of the time it is unnecessary. And yeah, apart from the extreme situations, the necessity to kill honeybees in situ is vanishingly small. And unfortunately, there will be some folks out there who will simply, you know, and when I say folks, I mean members of the public who will not be willing to go down that route, and instead they will take the path of what they see to be the least financial obstruction, and they will find someone to kill them in situ. And that in itself comes with a whole host of problems. And there we go. And I think already you can see here the nuances where it's not so clear cut. And because it is such an emotive subject, people have strong opinions, and rightly so. If we didn't have strong opinions, then it would make, you know, Friday night down the pub or on the podcast quite a dull thing. So there we go.
But I'm going to pick on you as sort of like the manufacturer distributor. We're going to take opposing views on this, so please, like, bear with us.
Okay, and just very quickly, just to put a disclaimer in here. When you say I speak for a manufacturing distributor, you mean in the sense that I used to work for one of the UK's largest.
I'm going to say not for a manufacturer distributor. Alex is going to take the role of the person who believes that they can be killed, and I'm going to take the role of the person who believes that they can't, and we're going to discuss it. So the first thing I would say to you is, what you're basically saying to me is, when you break it down to its most common denominator, the euthanasia of honeybees with a chemical in situ as a feral colony can be done. Because one of my complaints is the following: if I said to you, any chemical we have, that you know whether you can use it or not. So can you use Goliath against cockroaches? Yes. Can you use cypermethrin 10 against fleas? Yes. How do you use fucking Symmetrol Super against bed bugs? Well, you mix up 50 litres of liquid per 5 litres and you distribute it at a rate of 2 bar pressure. I think it's like 1 litre over 10 square meters or whatever it is. It tells you exactly how to do it. So how do you kill a feral colony with a chemical and tell us the chemical in line with the label?
Right. So this is an interesting one because all of our rodenticide labels are currently have gone through BPR, or I should have gone through BPR, which means that the labels are very prescriptive. They're all of one format. With the insecticides, we have some products that have gone through the biocidal product regulations, and so we'll have one set of labels, and we have others, which is what we would colloquially refer to as national rules. And they will have had historic labels because they will have not, the active materials in those will have not yet gone through BPR, and the labels will look a little different. It's why we have this mismatch between some labels that look, shiny and new and very prescriptive, and and others that are a bit older. Now, a lot of the labels containing permethrin are still, they are only just starting to get BPR approval, and that means at this point we are working off labels that are actually in some instances almost 10 years old.
Yeah, but what I'm saying to you is tell us a chemical and tell us how it's used in line with the label. So someone rings you up as a consultant and says, I have this honeybee colony and it's the 1 in 1,000 that you think is right for euthanasia. It's in a chimney, it's in a roof, whatever it is. How do you tell them to use that chemical correctly in line with the label in order to do it? So if I said to you, how do we use Goliath? You'd say, we apply so much every so often. How do we use Formidor? You speak to the manufacturer, they'll say, you put a match head size piece every 30 meters on the trails, you put it in feeders, use this much, use that much. Like, they will tell you how to use this chemical. So for the pest controller out there, they've never done it before. They get presented with this colony. Tell us the chemical and tell us how you use it against that colony in line with the label to kill that colony.
So I'm not going to mention any, trade names or the rest.
No, well, we can before you go that way. I'll mention one, Vulcan, because that's obviously come up and they've given us a thing. So now they've told us that.
So let's start. I did speak to Pelgar today because I knew this podcast was going to be coming up, and I knew the subject of Vulcan was going to come up, and I asked them, where is the stance then on honeybees, especially considering that your older labels are still under national rules, and they do have some terminology in there which strongly suggests that they can be used against bees. And with that, I got a reply from their head of technical, who said, with regards to Vulcan 5 P5 DP, while the label, and let's start this again so I can not butcher my words. With regards to Vulcan 5 DP, while the label and authorization makes no specific mention to the control of bees, there is also no exclusion, and the control of bees may be considered under the general flying and crawling insect category. The control of bees with insecticides should only ever be a last resort when there is no form of removal or control available, and only ever in situations when there is a significant threat to public health. So there we go. Now, if you ask me, is there an actual product out there that specifically states bees? I'm not.
I'm saying there are people who are using this flying and crawling insect authority on chemicals, especially Vulcan, in order to try to euthanize colonies. What I'm asking is, there's a hole about the size of 250 pence pieces. Honeybees are going into it in a chimney. How do you use that chemical in line with a label in order to, how much do you distribute, how do you distribute it, what you're going to do?
I know exactly what you're getting at here, because it is a little bit of an oxymoron, isn't it? Because of course, when you look at things like wasp nests, it will clearly say you use 40 grams or 60 grams or 80 grams for a wasp nest of a certain size. But of course, because it doesn't specifically mention a honeybee colony, and a honeybee colony, as we all know, they can be this tall, they can be this tall, they can drag all the way down the arse end of a chimney. And I think what you're getting at there, quite rightly, is the fact that 40 grams of powder, especially when applied to a sticky, waxy comb, is not going to go very far. You end up going to sort of like punch little holes out of it. And the actual sort of like ability to control that nest under label conditions is probably not going to happen. But that being said, it's then down to the ingenuity of the pest manager.
No,
And
no, that's not fair. That is absolutely not fair to say it's down to the pest manager. When you are a chemical manufacturer and you stand up and say you can consider this and you can use this, but we're not going to tell you how to do it. So any other chemical, if it was fleas, if it was bed bugs, they'll say to you, and this is one of my bugbears. Everyone shows one side of the Vulcan label, which says about it, it infers that you can use it against honeybees. But then when you look at the other side of the label, what it says is you must use a particular amount of dust that must be dusted over the surfaces at a rate of, and I believe it says it can be sprayed into voids for the use against against ants.
Mhm.
That's when I read it. So the question is, how do I use that chemical in order to kill those bees? It's all right saying you can do this, and if there's a bee up here and I spray that wall with it, I don't think I've done anything wrong.
Mhm.
But we're not doing that. What we're doing is we're trying to treat a feral colony. So if someone comes to you as a consultant and says to you, "There's a hospital here, we can't get people out. They've gone horrible. It's in that chimney up there, and we need to treat it." How are you doing it? How much
Me
are you telling
personally,
you? How are you telling them to work it out?
see, this is it. I am, you've put me in a camp here of pro bee killing, and I am actually not pro
Yeah,
bee
yeah,
killing at
no,
all.
yeah, we know.
So for me, this is a bit of a difficult sort of like thing to work. But I will play devil's advocate as best I can, and I
Yeah,
will
yeah,
absolutely try to do this. So in that, I would consider those kind of things to be, applied. So thank you very much, Neil, for bringing the label up there for me because I didn't have it at hand. Apply at a rate of 10 to 25 grams per square meter. So with that, obviously you would estimate the size of the nest and you would apply that
no,
level
no,
of
no, no, no,
material
no,
onto
no.
the
Hang on a
nest.
second. It doesn't
Yeah.
say. It says you've got to apply it at 10 to
Mhm.
25 grams per square meter. It doesn't
Mhm.
say you can pump in 300 grams into a hole the size of a 50 pence piece. That's not. That's
Yeah, no,
not applying
but
10 to
you're not
25
treating
grams.
that bit there. You're treating the
But you
void.
are.
So if the void
Yeah.
behind, if you can claim the void behind is 5 square meters, then at that point you can use anywhere between 50 and 125 grams.
So, so, um, so you use 125 grams. We know that
Yeah.
wouldn't touch its side. The next thing is what you will probably find. Well, what I've found with every single colony that I've ever done is the first thing that they do is they build a lump of comb flat against the entrance. It's easier to protect and it stops the wind coming in. So you blast that in the entrance, you are literally treating an area that big with
Mhm.
50 to 125 grams. Like, how do
Yeah.
you treat that at 10 to 25 grams per square meter? Because you know as well as I do that you are not getting that distributed evenly at a rate of 10 to 25 grams per square meter. You're not. It's not happening.
You're not, and it did not to mention the fact that anyone who's ever seen a honeycomb will know that they will actually brace the honeycomb in such a way to actually restrict airflow or
Yeah.
encourage airflow around certain bits. So you will always naturally get dead ends. Now, to clarify my point, what I'm talking about when I say the euthanasia of these insects in situ is more along the lines of if you were trying to remove them from a wall or something like that, they start to go crazy. You need to have an "oh shit, it's gone wrong" button in order to bring that colony to get
Agreed.
to a level that
Agreed. We call it a rescue plan, and you absolutely need
yeah.
it. But we're not talking about that because the vast majority of these aren't going to get that stage. What we're talking about is the people who are doing chemical treatments, not the people who are doing removals where they need to treat the colony, where the colony's opened up and you can do it. We're talking about people who are treating a entrance point. Like, how the fuck do they use a chemical in line with the labels in order to
Mhm.
treat that colony?
Okay, so I'll tell you what, we've had our first caller in who's been
Yeah, yeah.
sat
Let's
at
get
the bottom
James
of the
on.
screen for a little bit, and let's put a pin in this and come back to it because I need to compose. You've
Yeah,
put me on the
yeah,
back foot
yeah,
here. Need to compose some
yeah.
thoughts. So James, you're going to be coming on. So hello, James. How you doing?
Hello.
Welcome,
Good.
caller.
Thanks for having me.
That's
How's
all
it
right.
going?
So James, please give us your views on this subject.
So I'm very much against killing them. I have got a local beekeeper that I always try and get advice from. But I have had a job in the last, probably about a week and a half ago. A colony of bees were going into a second floor air brick in a council house property. And he suggested to me that this is the type of situation that he would suggest eradication. I've turned down the job following your recent podcasts because I'm just not sure what chemicals to use and how to treat. Having said that, I have done treatments in the past when I first set up on my own, which was about a year ago. And I did treat, but I made sure that I treated and then sealed up all of the entry points following that based on the government guidelines. But, you know, thinking back on what I've learned recently, I probably haven't used the correct chemicals. I think I used the Vulcan P5 dust because I was trying to move away from FICAM. And that seemed to work, but yeah, I'm a little bit anxious after the recent kind of knowledge that I've taken in. So I'm quite interested in this to see where it goes.
That's it, and I think that's it. You know, number one, it's an incredibly sort of like brave thing to be able to stand there and put your hand up and say, "Look,
yeah."
When I started off, no one told me any better. I didn't know any better, and you know, I did what I assume would be right. Now I have learned, and now I do know. It has changed my practices. It's changed the way I look at things, and you know, that's everyone. Everyone can look back on their career in pest management and remember something they did, you know, a year ago, 5 years ago, 15 seconds ago, that they're like, hang on a second, probably didn't quite get that right. I mean, yes, we've all been there. So yeah, number one,
you like this. You like this. James, I killed fucking loads before I started removing them. I genuinely thought I was doing the right thing. FICAM still had bees on the label, and I was more than happy to just blast the load of FICAM into an air brick. That being said, looking back now, I would feel exactly the same way you did. It worked, it killed them, but we've subsequently been back to them and seen the problems that it's caused, etc. So don't beat yourself up. I've done it, and I don't want anyone going, "We saw you kill it." Yeah, you did fucking 6-7 years ago. Of course I did. I was the same as everyone else.
Yeah, I mean,
the thing is,
sorry,
James, I was about to say, you did make a very interesting point there, which is you went in there with a beekeeper, assumedly to sort of like because they are what you would consider to be the competent person, the expert on bees. Now, however, that beekeeper told you, you know, they advised you to then euthanize that colony in situ. Now, my question is there. Should we listen to the beekeeper at that point? No, the knee-jerk reaction, the emotional reaction is these are bees, so we defer to the beekeeper. But of course, it's not the case, really, is it?
We're moving into the realms of pest management when it comes to that point. So I would say we would then be the expertise on that situation. But yeah, I mean, it's a slightly complex because if it's a council house property, I don't know the full ins and outs of the landlord situation, whether the landlord has to pay for that or council subsidise it. And it just seemed a bit of a nightmare situation, to be honest, because it would involve scaffolding, removing in bricks to try and get into the cavity wall. You know, costs start coming into it then.
See, that'll be something, and we'll pick that up in a second, just when Sean and I go back on, which is the cost aspect. But no, James, thank you ever so much for coming on, having your shout and having your say. I'm hoping that more folks will come up and just have their little bit. But thank you for doing that, and you've given us two actually really good talking points, which is number one, three.
I've got one more.
One more.
What's that?
I did do another treatment with the same beekeeper. It was a commercial premises, and it was a feral colony that had a load of honeycomb in a top floor. They were going through a like a flat roof situation. We cut into the plasterboard, and there was a fucking shitload of honeycomb. Again, I treated that, but I removed the honeycomb, and what a fucking shit job that was. But I removed the honeycomb and disposed of it as hazardous waste. Again, I don't necessarily know if that's the correct protocol, but I know.
Yes.
Yeah, I definitely didn't factor enough of the cost into that job. So another learning experience.
Another learning experience, especially considering it's hazardous waste is usually done by weight, and honeycomb. Yeah. I don't know if anyone's ever picked up a honeycomb. It gets a bit old weighty, doesn't it?
Fucking heavy.
Fucking hell, yeah, exactly. That. I
Yeah.
think that is the professional terminology. Okay, James, thank you ever so much for having your voice, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the podcast. Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
God bless.
So, I mean,
I'm not letting you off the hook. No. I want you to tell us how to kill a hunt. I want you to tell us how to kill a colony with chemicals.
I'm
not
going to tell
letting
you.
you off.
You're not
Come
going to let
on.
me off. Okay, I'm going to hold my hands up. I don't know how you would actually kill a honeybee's nest, and that's the short. That is the long and the short of it. I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to invent some ingenious thing over the next 30 seconds. Every different
Let me grab it from
scenario
you,
is going.
Abhinav. Let me grab it from you because this is my area, and I'll tell you my thoughts on it. Again, you don't have to listen to us. What we found doing removals is that the amount of honeycomb in a colony is not always proportionate to how long those bees have been in that colony. You never know how big that void is going to be unless you do a survey, and you never know how many combs or what surface area or the numbers of bees that are in there. So guessing at how much to put in an entrance, for me, you're absolutely right. It can't be done. We see colonies that have been in there for 7 years, and you open them up and they're about 18 inches deep and 18 inches wide. I've also seen colonies which have been in place for 18 months, which are 6 foot deep and 2 foot wide, because of the genetics of the bee. Different bees bred different ways will produce different things, availability of forage, etc., etc. So if you're going to do a chemical treatment, you absolutely have to be able to work out the size of the void, how many combs are in there, what the surface area is, and how much chemical is needed. Simply dumping 150 grams of Vulcan in the entrance is not going to work. Even if you block up the entrance, it isn't going to fucking work. That's the first thing I'd say is, so if you're going to do it, have a real big think about the amount of chemicals you're putting in, how you're going to distribute it, and how you're going to get it in there.
Absolutely. I'm glad you took that tact and you weren't trying to nail me to a metaphorical cross there. That was good.
I tell you what's happening, Al. You're getting the brunt of my frustrations because I've spoke to numerous manufacturers, distributors.
I know. I stood next to you when you spoke to one of them. Yes.
Was that Jim from Deadline?
It may have been,
as
far as you know.
Yeah, he said he was going to come on, and this is my concern, because publicly everyone's like, no, you shouldn't do it. And then as soon as it wasn't a public forum and we're just sitting there, he's like, I've got some chemicals you can use against them. And I was like, no, you haven't. And he's like, yes, I have. And I'd checked every Deadline thing. Like, I've checked them all. So I was like, right, come on then. So I walked over and he's like, all right, yeah, we've got this one here. And I was like, right, how do I use it? And he went, well, we do see lots of evidence of bad practice. And I was like, well, tell us good practice. Tell us how I use it. And he did exactly the same thing. He was like, it's, and I was like, listen, you can tell us how to use it against everything else, what my dosage rates are, what my application is, how do I use it against bees? And he just blanked the question and wandered off and wouldn't answer it. And this is the whole issue I have, that if one of these jobs goes wrong, it's up to the person who used it. And when you say to a pest controller, but when you say to a pest controller, yes, you can use this, but no, we're not going to tell you how to use it. So, like, say it's a flea job. If I turned around and said, oh yeah, it was a bit there was a lot of fleas. So what I did was I mixed up 100 litres per 5 litre, and the label said 50. They would rightly say, you've used it incorrectly. We are telling you to use this much over this area. But when it comes to bees, they go, we're not telling you. We're not telling you how much to use. We're not telling you how to apply it. We're not telling you anything. We will tell you absolutely nothing.
There is a kind of a grey workaround here. And again, not to, do this. But of course it says 10 to 25 grams per square meter. Okay, number one. The rest of the label then says retreat as is necessary. It doesn't give any time frame on that. So you could say, void, I'm estimating that this chimney has a volume of so many cubic meters, so many meters square of flat surfaces. Therefore, X number of grams. I'm going to put that in there. Now, if that doesn't have an effect, as you imagine it will do in half an hour, would that not then technically count as retreat as necessary? Because if
No.
you think about your wasp nest, and we do the same thing, if you do your wasp nest, you go up there, huff. If it hasn't worked, I'll be back tomorrow lunchtime. So you are already with things like wasp nests. You wouldn't think twice. If it's a wasp nest and you give it a puff of Vulcan and it didn't work on day one, you turn up on day two, not a problem. And to be fair,
Yeah,
if you
this
had the
is
time, you do it on the way home.
yeah. So this is the whole issue, though, isn't it? They would, if it went wrong, you would go to them and they'd say, "What happened?" You'd say, "I followed the labels on the thing. I put 20 grams of powder into the entrance, and that's what the label said." If this goes wrong and your neighbour's bees die through poisoning, and there's poison gets into the food chain, they're going to
That's
say, "How did you
that's
do
a
it?"
different thing, though. That's got nothing to do with the application rate. It's got everything to do with not making sure that you've secured that comb and you've not secured that hive from foraging bees.
Ba-boom.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take you back to the chimney,
hmm
and cost's going to come into this. There's a hole in the
That's one
side
of the
of the
things. Yeah.
chimney. Yeah, I'm going to bring this up. So there's a hole in the side of the chimney that the bees are using,
Mhm.
and you treat that. You block that one hole up. How would you block it up?
Again, you're asking me. So how would I block that hole up? So you're going to say, I'm going to obviously say I'm going to use some quick setting cement, or I'm going to use some kind of binder, which is going to be quick setting, and it's going to be
How are you getting it
more.
up there?
How am I getting it up there?
Hmm.
Well, the quick setting cement I use comes in a little mastic tube.
No, I mean, are you just going to jump on a ladder and get up to that thing with a load of bees flying around and try and block up a hole with some quick setting cement?
I imagine if
Is
I
that
put the
worth
dust in
it?
there, then I have access to it. This is
Is
it.
that safe? Is that safe? Like, would you
It's
suggest that somebody does that?
I wouldn't suggest that somebody scaled up the side of the building like fucking Spider-Man and basically squirt it in with a cake corking gun. I would suggest that if you're going to be up there doing the treatment, then you do the treatment properly. You don't, if you get the correct access, you don't sort of like swing up the side. If you're going to be treating that hole, the other thing is you need to be able to make sure that that's not just the bees tend to use just one hole, but there are not escape routes. There's not further cracks in the building. There's not going to be an air brick around the corner. So again, it all comes down to your due diligence and your
Hang on
survey.
a second. Yeah. I'm going to show you something here because I've got a video, I hope, which will explain why I would say blocking up that hole. Because I'm guessing that what we're saying is that we have to make sure that all holes to that void are blocked, not just the void, not just the one that they're using.
And I'm fairly certain again, I'm paraphrasing from the label there. The label will say, ensure that all comb is secured from from foraging bees. It doesn't specifically say cover up the hole that you blasted the whatever your chosen insecticide is. Make sure that that whole comb, that whole area, is then prevented from access. And so if that means having to put a temporary fix or a temporary cowl over, or even a permanent cowl over other cracks, crevices and ingress points, then that's what you're going to have to do. But again, I can see what you're saying. At that point, by the time you've done all that, by the time you've got your scaffold up, by the time you've done all of that, why can't you just do the removal? And with that, I will bring in now, I'm going to bring in my gun, which is cost. Okay. Now, with this, is it fair? Let's say that a homeowner does not have their bees and their wool are not covered by insurance. And this is, again, I hasten to add, me playing devil's advocate, I'm very much pro keep the bees alive. But say that homeowner does not have insurance. You've just quoted them the best part of £5,000 to take the bees out of their chimney at that point. They don't have insurance. They don't have any of this other stuff. Is it right, therefore, if somebody can euthanize those bees in situ and make it safe and ensure that they've made it safe by applying all of the due diligence practices there, who are you to say that that person has to, because you feel ethically bound, to spend another £4,500 because to do what you feel is the right thing and is not necessarily a legal obligation?
Right. Okay. I'm going to show you something very quickly, and then I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, which is why
You're going to answer
you're
my
absolutely
question.
Yeah, no, because it'll answer your question. I'll answer it. I'll answer it. You're right. I'm no one, and that homeowner can absolutely do what they want. And if they want to find someone to kill them, then I've got no issues with that. The direction I'm taking this from is you're the pest controller. You have been brought in as an expert, and you will be responsible for your behaviour. So if I show this now, I hope this works. Oh, hang on a second.
It didn't. It did.
It did. But then I pressed the wrong button, didn't I? Share screen. This one, share. Right. So if I press play on this, you can see where the colony is in the middle pot. But look where the bees are getting into it. This had been treated with the holes blocked.
Yep, there we go.
One there. I don't know if it shows you the next one. I can't remember if it does. Yeah, there's holes here where they could get through. So there was 3 different points on that where the bees could get through. So imagine you go up and you treat it. Stop screen share. You treat it, you block up the holes that you see, and you are successful in killing it. The next thing is the blokes, bees next door, all 7 hives, come in, rob the living shit out of it, and don't die, but are partially dead, and the honey is contaminated and it gets into the food chain. Who is responsible for that?
Obviously, the pest manager is at that point.
Yeah. So how, if you are going to treat it, like on that one there, like, are we now saying that we have to get up close and personal and make sure that all entry points to that colony are blocked?
I would argue that, as with not just bees, all pest management, we have a due diligence to ensure that we are eliciting the maximum impact for the minimum cost. And if we aren't able to mitigate the risks, then we shouldn't be going ahead with the treatment. If the risks outweigh the rewards, or the potential for risk outweighs the potential for reward, then we should be looking at alternative strategies. That is always going to be my standpoint with any pest going. So in this instance, with your bees in that roof, yes, if I'd gone up there and I'd found that there is simply just the one entrance hole, it was very clear, I'd done a thorough survey, I'd looked around, I couldn't see any other areas where those bees were moving in and out. I was convinced, because the structure of the building showed it to be that, then it would be an option if there was no other options available to me. However, if it was filled with those holes, then of course I'd have to readdress my situation. I'd have to reevaluate what I was doing, because I couldn't control and I couldn't mitigate the risks sufficiently to allow myself to be covered by my due diligence. And there we go.
Yeah, the issue with this is, though, you can't see those holes until you try to do your removal.
Okay. Yeah.
They were active flues, so you literally can't see them. So it's like, at a later date, if that goes wrong and the pest controller's head is now on the block, he feels like he's done everything wrong. And this is the issue that I have with it. He could feel like he's doing everything wrong, everything right, and he could still end up in fucking a whole world of hurt.
No doubt.
And again,
so with that,
the question is, what chemical does he use to treat that colony?
So if I was to pick, and I don't know if there's a chemical out there like this, and there obviously is a chemical out there like that, but I don't know what the product name is. We are getting very hung up on powders right now. We're talking powders because in our brains, powder has been the thing that we treat feral wasps and bees and the rest of it with. Okay, now forget powder for a second. We only pick powder because we know we've got access to equipment, we know how it works. A bee looks like a wasp, we're going to treat them the same. Fine. How about I use a non-residual aerosol spray to treat the volume of that cavity instead? I come in from slightly below or slightly above that nest, and I fill that with enough, I fill the volume of that. I make my own hole at that point. I come in below and I allow that tidal volume, like I was doing a forced UL liquid Vulcan RFU. Thanks, guys. So with that, I fill that volume and I do a space treatment, because they are, to all intents and purposes, a flying insect and it's a direct application. And I control the hive that way. That way, because I'm using a non-residual insecticide, there is no contamination to the comb. There is no contamination to the area around the comb. And so long as, and I've controlled the adult bees at that point, and I can control the nest as is necessary. I think again, it's because we're pigeonholing ourselves with dust.
I agree, because I absolutely agree. We're allowing dust and we shouldn't. But that being said, and it goes back to that same old thing. We talk about costs. The costs in doing a removal are often the scaffolding and the builder. Like, are we now saying that a pest controller is really going to consider getting scaffolding up to a chimney so that he can take his power tools up there, so that he can remove bricks, create a hole, spray some stuff in it, and close it up? Like, is that, if you've got to that point where you're going to have to put scaffolding up and you're going to have to get a builder in, like, why the fuck would you not just take it out?
Okay, so 2 reasons for that. Number one, we are there at the behest of the clients, rightly or wrongly. And number 2, the potential of cost. But of course, you're all very much looking at this persistently here from a domestic resident point of view, red bricks and mortar type area. As we know, feral colonies do crop up in more situations than just inside domestic residences. We will find them in other areas as well. Let's say, for example, we have them in the wall of a school at that point. Okay, let's just take a school for example. We can't make everyone go home for school. We can't leave them alone. It's going to have to, something's going to have to be done. Okay, and my point being is that colony suddenly starts to go dippy. You've got everyone at the other side of the playground because you said, right, I need 100 meters exclusion. But when they go mad, there is no safe distance when they've got their mind in gear. Okay.
Yeah.
What happens then? You need to have a solution, and with that, arguably, would it not be easier, therefore, to you're going to have to euthanize that colony somewhere down the road because it's an aggressive colony? Why do we not euthanize it first and then do the cutout afterwards and remove the risk of it going aggressive in an area where people are at risk?
Wasn't it you that told me that permethrin is an excite or repellent?
Yes, it is at the end of the day, but it's also very fast acting. It's a lot faster acting than people give it credit for. So if you put enough of it in there, it will be exciter repellent for about 5 minutes.
So we do a lot of these. We do a lot of these, and it's you're right. The risk mitigation. If you ever see one of our surveys, they're about 7 pages long, and 3 pages that is risk mitigation. But whenever you look at it, you think, your schools, they're not there at weekends. You've got Saturdays and Sundays. You might not want to work with them, but they're there Saturdays and Sundays. You've got that opportunity. People can be moved. I've never once not been able to mitigate the risk of the bees being removed from that property. And in fact, I feel like there's less risk in removing them than there is in doing a chemical treatment, exponentially so. Less risk to you, less risk to others.
So here is a question then, which kind of links back to my other one, okay? Which is this. We mentioned cost before, okay? Now, here is my bad cop proposal to you. As we said before, there is a cost implication here. Now, bees are not protected animals. To my mind, they are definitely an animal of concern. They're an animal that should be protected, but under legal circumstances, they are not a protected animal. They're simply a beneficial insect. Now, with that, it means that the person who is employing you to do it has no legal obligation to ensure that those bees survive treatment. They just want the bees gone. And whether it's gone through cutout, whether it's gone through in situ euthanasia, they actually don't care. What they will care about is the cost. Now, again, I said before, is it ethical for you to enforce your ethics, your beliefs and your views on that homeowner to the tune of several thousands of pounds because you feel it's the right thing to do, when in reality, legally speaking, it is not the right thing? Now hear me out, and this is my question. If you turn around and say, I refuse to actually treat this nest in situ, I will do a cutout, this is my cost for a cutout. If you want to get these bees treated, go somewhere else. Now, with that, they do. They go somewhere else, but they don't go to another pest manager because they fear that pest managers will have the same opinion. So they go to someone who is not trained or unscrupulous. And at that point, they do undertake a chemical treatment. But because they are not working to a due diligence, because they don't have the same duty of care, because they don't have the same passion and enthusiasm for the industry, not only do they not take any risk mitigations whatsoever, they run in, spray, pray, leave, and never seen again, doing 3 to 4 times as much damage as you would have done if you had done the in situ euthanasia to the best of your ability. By your walking away and refusing to do that treatment, but knowing that I had to fill up the holes, knowing where to look for the holes and doing my level best to fill all those holes, by my walking away from that and leaving it to an unskilled and untrained person, have I made that situation worse?
So here lies the problem. What happens is that pest controllers assume the problem for the homeowner, and it isn't your problem. You are the solution. So you can take that back to its most base thing. Someone rings you for a rat treatment, right, Lex? He says, I've got rats in my garden. How much are you going to charge us? And you say, I'm going to charge you 250 quid and we're going to do it properly. And he goes, I can't afford to do that. I'm going to get Billy down the road to do it. And Billy comes in and Billy throws loose grain all over the roof and the birds eat it and the birds die and everything goes wrong. Well, surely that's exactly the same thing. He can't afford it. He doesn't want to pay it. But for some reason, it's okay to walk away when that happens, but it's not okay to walk away when the bees are there. If someone has a broken roof and it needs a re-roof on that roof, do we then turn around and say, oh no, I'm sorry, you can't pay several £1,000s for a new roof?
Here's a tarpaulin.
Yeah. So we're going to do it for 500 quid because that's what he can afford. His windows are shot. He needs brand new windows. It's going to cost him several £1,000s. Well, he can't really afford that, so it's up to us to do it for 500 quid. You are not the problem, and you should not be assuming their problem. You should be giving them the solution, right or wrong.
Exactly that. And you've given them a solution, and the guy down the road has given them a solution. But the thing is you could do his solution 10 times better than he can.
But you can't, can you? Because this is the harsh reality. It's in that chimney. You can do exactly what that shitty bloke would do, which is go and spray a load of chemicals into that hole and cross your fingers. But as soon as you want to block it up and you want to do any work on that chimney, you want to do an inspection on it, you're going to need scaffolding by law. You can't work off scaffolding with power tools. You're going to need to get up to it. You're going to need a builder. The costs are there to deal with it. The only way the costs are not there to deal with it is if we stand on the floor with a lance and bray a load of fucking shit into a hole, which we know we don't have a chemical that does that. We've been through it, unless someone wants to come on and say you can use this chemical. Previously, of course, we had Vicam. Had bees on it. Hands up, you can fucking do it. But now we don't. So okay. When we talk about cost.
So let's say there was a product back on the market, metaphor, a completely imaginary product that has come back on. It has bees on the label. Now, just because it has bees on the label and it's legal to use, does that then completely underwrite everything you've just said about the ethics of not treating honeybees?
If I tell you now, and I'll go back to what I said at the start, my complaint is manufacturers who are producing this not tell us to use it. If they produce a chemical and they say this new chemical, White RX or whatever they're going to call it, you can use it against bees, and you put 100 grams into the entrance and block up that one entrance, and you are golden, then I'd say absolutely 100% pest controllers, fill your boots. You are
despite the fact that it may still have potentially the same impacts to those 7 hives next door?
You're not taking the risk. You are not assuming the risk.
The manufacturer's assuming the risk.
Manufacturer's assuming the risk. This chemical did not work. I did everything that I could. I followed the label. You know how many times I was here, read the label, read the label, read the label. I read the label in exactly the same way that it's like, how would you treat bed bugs? I mixed up this much and I sprayed it that. I've done it in line with the label. If the chemical fails, the chemical fails. That's up to the chemical manufacturer to deal with, not you. So I would have no issues if that chemical was on the market, which said, do this much, hit this thing. Here's how you do it. Here's how you measure it up. here's how you get your dosage rates right. This is what you do. I'd be like, yeah, okay. But they won't do that. And you know they won't do that.
I don't know that. I can strongly assume that they won't do that. But you know, we've stranger things happen at sea. But no, I get what you're saying there. But it's interesting for me to hear you say that, because previously I had assumed that your reticence to kill bees was based on you know, a moral obligation to not kill bees. Is your fear of not fear is a wrong word, but your reluctance to kill bees is one of legal implication and ramifications at that point?
Yeah, what I don't like is pest controllers assuming the risk of the homeowner, assuming the risk of the chemical manufacturer, assuming the risk of the distributor, assuming the risk of the technical guy who told them how to do it, for like 150 quid, 70 quid, 80 quid, 200 quid, whatever it is, for fucking the risk to the rewards is so out of kilter in the euthanasia of them that I'm fucking so strongly against it. I don't care to kill bees.
I had not got that. I mean, I can literally hear it in your voice.
Don't give a shit.
I have to say, it's yeah, to take a step back and a bit of breather here. It's actually really wonderful to have these kind of conversations in such a passionate way, because this is an industry that we are all so passionate about, and I don't for one second think that anyone, you know, should feel ashamed for having this level of passion about what they do for a single minute. So with that, we've got a lot of people, you know, actually have a lot of people watching. We have a lot of people commenting like that. Does anyone else want to come on and have a shout and have their piece? Because as you say, we had a couple of interesting things. I think the you know, let's talk about the consequences for treatment. Clive, do you want to come on and say your bit, or you know, are we not going to push you there?
So,
but no, so
to be fair, if I know Clive's sitting in a field at the minute, and I would love him to come on. If he doesn't have the signal, me and Clive, hands up, we speak every single day. I absolutely know where he stands on it, and I can absolutely sort of give him a bit of a shout here. So the points that he's raising are the following. What are the consequences? So here's the next thing. You treat a colony in a roof space or in a chimney, and it works, and you block up the holes. We've already spoke about the weight of honey and everything. Got some videos here to show you. For anybody who isn't watching, who doesn't deal with bees, who doesn't keep bees, what you may not know is that the bees regulate the temperature of that hive by moving air and water around it. They will always keep it at the right temperature, because if it's too high or too cold, their brood dies. You know, the babies die. They really, really struggle. They can't get to where they want to be. So if we look at, let me see if I can bring this up. This one, I think it is.
Well, hang on, mate. We can see your entire catalogue there.
Hang on a second.
Yeah,
Pause that.
Just stop the share for just a minute. There we go.
Hang on. I don't mind them looking. There's a call on there they can't see. So
GDPR and all that jazz.
Here we go. This was provided to me by a lovely bloke who some of you may know, called Kelly Ferrant. This was a colony which had died in a chimney.
Mm-hmm.
So you've killed this colony and blocked it up. It can no longer maintain its temperature. The honey and wax collapse.
I mean, just a couple of loose leaf teas and you've got yourself a very nice sweet tea soup with that, haven't you?
Yeah. There's another one. I'll just so you, these aren't one-offs. These are absolutely not one-offs. So if we look at the next one, I think it's this one. Yeah. So if people think I'm like making this up and it's not going to happen, here's another one. Clive sent us this one.
Oh, wow. So for those listening back on Spotify, it looks like an office roof here, and there is just not wax, honey running down the walls, a little bit like The Shining here, only with honey, and it's all over the windowsill. It's just absolutely plastered all over it. So just out of interest, I mean, what is the financial damage to that building as a result of that? Both in terms of the clear up effort, but also the remedial works to repair all of those roof and wall panels.
And who is responsible for that? You are the professional. You've killed it, you've blocked it up. Who is responsible for that cleanup, that repair?
Depends what your terms and conditions say, surely.
Who's writing now terms and conditions to say that this thing might collapse, and if it collapses, you're responsible for the damage?
I imagine if I will be honest, and I imagine that if this is something that you do on the regular basis, I strongly recommend that you have an ironclad set of terms and conditions that covers these eventualities. As you say, it's about risk versus reward. If you absolutely want me to treat those bees, at the point that at the point in my job is to treat those bees. Your job is to find a way to treat that comb. And if you choose not to treat that comb, here are the things that may result as a consequence of that happening.
Yeah.
You are aware of the consequences, and you have still chosen to pick this route.
Can you now understand why I say that chemical euthanasia, in the traditional term of squirting chemicals into a hole, is not cost effective? Is not professional, and is not possible? Because one, I don't believe we have a chemical that can be done. That we don't have FICAM. I don't think we've got a chemical. Two, it doesn't reduce costs, because in order to chemically treat it, you would have to go up, you would have to inspect the yeah, exactly. Sean Taylor's just raised a massive point. Terms and conditions almost irrelevant. It's your reputation, you know. Brilliant point. But then you've got this chemical treatment which doesn't work. You've then got to get up. You've got to have enough scaffolding in place so you can work safely around that chimney. You're probably going to have a builder to do the repair work to put it back together. So costs is still the same costs. And then if you're going to open it up and chemically treat it, there's actually a larger cost, because if you remove the combs, they have to be dealt with as hazardous waste, or you run this risk. So the actual cost of a chemical treatment should be more than the cost of a live removal, because you would add on the 1,500 quid cost to remove the 200 kilos of fucking contaminated comb.
Yep. Okay. So with that, then again, it always seems, and it's awful, it always seems to circle back to cost. And I was always taught in risk management that cost should never be an object. Okay, it should be a factor that is considered, but it should never be an object that actually stops you doing the right thing. However, reality is when it comes to homeowner, there is. So a lot of insurance companies will cover things like bees, but not all of them. So with that, do you think we could actually solve a lot of these issues with insurance companies being more transparent about what it is and isn't covered, and giving people that option for a premium of £3 a month? We will cover honeybee removal in your property up to the value of £10,000. And at that point, people can electively choose it, and then suddenly, there we go. So, and then the burden of responsibility is put back on the client and the homeowner, and we don't have to have that conversation anymore around what is the cheapest route, because in reality, it is a moot point, because it is being covered by your home insurance policy. And I think this is where it all falls down. It's not necessarily that people want to do the wrong thing. I don't think anyone wakes up in the morning and thinks, you know what, today, bee murderer, that's going to be me. It always comes down to fact. And or do they?
No. I think there's a number of things at play, and I'm going to be. This is my personal thoughts. I actually believe this, and I think I'm going to get slaughtered for saying it, but I don't mind. I think there is a degree of ego involved in it. So we've always been able to treat honeybees historically, and now we can't. Or I don't think we can. And there's that little bit of a grey area, and there's a bit of a hole might be, I know what I'm doing. I can block these holes up. I can do it. And exactly that. The reality is that people haven't got the money. They'll fall around till they find someone to spray them. That's true. Absolutely true. If you choose to be that person, then that's fine. I don't mind. The next thing is that the customer is able to put that pressure onto the pest controller to do something that he doesn't want to do or shouldn't want to do. And then there's also that degree of, well, it's easy, isn't it? I'll make 150 quid, for spraying a hole and blocking it up with some Darbo, and I'll jump up on a ladder or whatever, and I will cut the corners. I will be the window cleaner today, but I will tell myself that I'm the professional because I followed the codes of worst practice in this case. That's what I think happens.
So again, to role play this, if for example we were to go completely the other way, so at the moment we're very much leaning towards just don't do it, leave it to those who feel as though they can, and we will stick to this end. Now I'm going to go completely the other way now. I'm going to say, what if we license the wrong word. I'm not going to say the word license. I'm not going to do it. But what if there was a ticket? What if there was a course? What if there was a, like we have people who claim to be trade service? What if we made the whole process of bee management and bee euthanasia much more regulated, the wrong word, but a lot more training involved, a lot more specialist at that point. And at that point, option to do an in situ. So an in situ euthanasia at that point, done by a trained specialist, would minimize those risks, would minimize all of those issues because they understood everything that was going on. And at that point, we take away from the risks of people doing it badly and the consequences that come with that.
Yes, and I guarantee you 1,000,000% that the people who went on that course would immediately realize that chemical euthanasia is absolutely putting your business at risk. It's putting you at risk. And, it is not it would be more expensive to do the chemical euthanasia than it would to do the live removal, and that the risks can be managed if you know what you are doing.
But at the same time, the option to do it is there, that in those exceptional circumstances, it can be done for the preservation of public health if it is a necessity to do so and there is no other option. Because I don't believe if you follow that.
Do you know what I mean? I know I'm labouring the point, but it keeps coming back to it. You have to be able to follow the label in order to protect yourself in a court. And there was a bloke who lost his business over this. Do you know this, in Yorkshire?
I do actually. So this actually doesn't come back down to necessarily not following the label. This comes back down to a contamination of honey, which was destined as food, doesn't it? So tell us the full story with that.
So he thought he was a well-meaning, decent bloke, and he treated a colony. Honey in a neighbouring managed hive was contaminated. The prosecution comes not under the misuse of chemicals, but under the food standards. And I believe he lost his business as a result of it. I know that he was prosecuted. One of the terms of his prosecution was to go on further training and blah, blah, blah. But I'm pretty confident, Clive will probably be able to tell me better. I'm sure the guy lost his business, but don't hold me to that. But trust us, for the sake of 150 quid, 70 quid, 200 quid, whatever it is, it can't be. We've got him. He's in his office. Stand by.
Come on, Clive. You give him a preamble. You literally just threw him in there at the deep end. He barely got his cap on.
We're an hour and 10 in, and I've still got another 3 points I want to make.
Hold on a minute, Clive.
Come on, Clive. Tell me about the prosecution, mucker.
So I've got a bit of feedback. And I think there's a bit of feedback. I'm not quite sure. I've got things going on the computer and on the phone. And
if you've still got Facebook open and you're watching it on Facebook, close that down. Close that shit down right now. Again, so while Clive is frantically tapping buttons, if anyone else wants to come on and have a chat, that's how easy it is to get on. Copy, paste the link, join us, have your say, have a shout. Team good cop, bad
as
cop.
You can tell,
there we go.
This is not in the middle of Cheshire.
Well, it's very nice.
So that ended up being a washout. The ground's gone soft, and the tractors are towing vehicles on and off a show that I was supposed to be attending, selling our honey and bits and pieces. But no. So just going back to your consequences and things and bits and pieces, guys.
Yeah.
We're seeing in the UKBR, or from getting reports from the subscribers of the UKBR, that they're attending more and more jobs where pest control's gone in and done their thing, rightly or wrongly. I'm not here for that argument, but we are going in and tidying up, cleaning up a lot of these jobs coming in, which is obviously adding cost to the original job. And on a couple of instances, we're being asked from a professional point of view whether or not there is a case to answer for trading standards. So businesses, as Sean's already said, have got to be really careful about their reputations going forward with treating bees. I'm with Sean. If you want to go killing bees, go killing bees. It's not. I'm not here or there. You know, I make my living about removing them, and that's what people come to me for. They don't come to me for killing the bees. In fact, I very rarely get calls at all these days asking if I'll euthanize.
So, Clive, I've got two questions. I know one of them, Dave actually is sort of like preempted here, which is with this, with your, you know, you advocating talking about the consequences. How long does it actually take a comb to lose integrity? What is the window of opportunity? Bees have been euthanized, comb is left in situ. How long does that business or homeowner have, realistically speaking, before they might start seeing signs of damage? Are we talking days, weeks, months, or could it, you know, be?
It will all depend, Alex, on weather conditions, how big the colony was, how long it had been there, what sort of condition the comb was in originally. There's lots of, you know, variables in it. So there's no real hard and fast law of it's going to be 2 days, it's going to be 2 weeks, or it's going to be 2 years.
I'm not asking for a formula. I was just saying on average. And I think that
yeah. But that being said, a nice hot day, big colony filled with runny honey, you kill them. You could literally be looking at hours before that was in your fucking living room.
Okay. So that is an interesting thing, because it means that, you know, you may not have packed up your tools before it's all started to potentially go wrong. Now, the other question was, and this was something that James mentioned before, he took a beekeeper out as a competent person, and it was the beekeeper who was actually advocating for the euthanasia at that point. Now, you know, what rights do the beekeepers have? Everyone defers to them. You know, they are the beekeepers. They know best about the bees. But if they tell you to euthanize them, then, you know, have you heard of that?
Yeah, I hear it all the time, Alex. And my answer to that is that they're not a pest controller. They're not going to be able to tell you what chemicals to use. Probably going to know even less than you do about chemicals and what they can use and where they can use them. Secondly, and it always gets me, because there's a risk to contaminating the honey that's close by. And they don't know that these colonies will need sealing up and things like that. They aren't aware of the precautions that need to be taken after treating a colony. So to advise treatment is putting their honey at risk of contamination, and secondly, I don't think, quite knowing the beekeeping exam system, it doesn't cover euthanizing colonies anywhere.
Okay. Imagine it's the opposite of what you're trying to be doing there. But of course, it kind of does, though, doesn't it? Because the bee inspectors will come in and they will advocate the euthanizing of colonies, but for very different reasons. Yeah. Foul brood being an example, and and not with insecticide, of course, but the concept of euthanasia. Now, with that, I mean, and not to give you a cheeky plug here, but I know that you do run a course on the safe removal of bees. Now, would you be comfortable, let's say, and again, talking metaphorically, to expand that to cover not just the removal of bees, but the treatment of bees in situ. Everything to do with bees, feral bees in public health situations, so that in the same way that we've had John and Davey and others coming in talking about the drain control courses that they've done, we've had people coming in and talk about drones, and these are aspects of our industry which are becoming more formalized, more structured. Do you believe that we should then start going as well and having a more structured approach to the bees in our industry? Because as I believe at the moment, you might be the only person out there to do a bee course with a pest management aspect to it. Okay. Should there be more people doing this? Should it be a formally recognized part of our industry like we have other things? Or are we good as it turns out? We should just simply just leave it to those who know.
I certainly think there should be some awareness of bee management within the industry, and then people can make their own decisions from there, can't they?
That kind of leaves us to where we are at the moment. Where do we go looking for that information at the moment? It's just one. But there we go. I don't. Sean, you are champing at the bit. You look like
No. I think listen, me and Clive are absolutely aligned. If I was critical of Clive, he knows what my criticisms are. He's too political, but that's why he's in charge, because he can manage people a lot better than I can. Like I'm a lot more upfront about it, but I know exactly where he is, and everything he says, I absolutely 110% agree with. Like he is absolutely right.
Yeah, I do think that, and I might get shot for this, and quite frankly, I'm taking the lead from Sean. I don't really care, but I do think it's wrong that we see in the pest control industry that we care so much about the barn owls and rodenticides, and then we forget insecticides and our own food chain. It just baffles me massively. And
I've got a question for you, Clive. Clive, I've got a question for you.
Go for it.
If a colony was treated and it was sealed from the outside to stop other bees getting in, what other insects or organisms could potentially eat that honey and then get it into the environment? Let's see if anyone can come up with them. Mice?
Moths are my go-to, because what eats moths?
Bats.
So
protected species.
Yeah, protected species.
Slugs, Clive?
Yeah, slugs. Just about anything you can think that can't get in will get in.
Mice. Slugs.
Slugs being an invertebrate would probably perish. Things like moths. So permethrin has, again, talking from a technical point of view, permethrin has a very low mammalian toxicity. I believe it would be remarkably difficult to kill a mouse or a bat with secondary poisoning from permethrin. I think we're relatively safe there. The bigger risks come from danger to aquatic environments and to the food chain, where you're talking about other insects and the rest of it. But it's interesting to say that we should sit up and take more interest in the insecticides that we use, because in reality, actually, we have a huge safeguarding stewardship. It's just not in pest management. It's just not in public health pest control. It's almost exclusively in agriculture. And agriculture being an industry, 100 times greater than our own. And so there is a stewardship. The assumption being that in pest management and in public health pest management specifically, 99% of the insecticides that we use, internal only. In effect, almost all of them are internal. So the ramifications for environmental impact should be vanishingly low, other than in these relatively unusual circumstances of bees. I can't think of another insect out there where even a bad treatment would result in a big environmental contamination. You certainly, unless you were, spraying chemical all over a carpet and then washing it outside later on. There we go. So that might be why we don't have the same level of stewardship or the same level of care.
So would you, I know you're quite an advocate for looking to see pest control take up the same sort of, not so much qualifications, but
I want to see a more structured approach to how we apply pest management for sure.
The PA system, you know, the PA1 and the PA6 systems got, you know, where you're calibrating sprayers and the like. Do you think a stewardship scheme would advocate something like that, or?
My views on a stewardship scheme for insecticides are that if it does come about, it needs to come about before we are asked to do it by government or by regulators. Because if we are asked to do it by government or regulators, they will come in with a set of prerequisites. These are the goalposts. These are the things you need to do. Okay. If we electively, and my choice is, hi Hugh, how you doing? If we electively choose a program of stewardship, then we get to choose what those caveats are. We get to choose the direction it takes. And so, yes, I am all in favor of having a similar stewardship program, and I think we need to do it before we are, you know, jump before we're pushed, so to speak. So we have a control over it, so we can choose the direction it takes. So it's, you know, if it is going to be a one-day course, it's a one-day course with caveats. As we've seen with the safe use of rodenticides, it was a good idea that basically got railroaded, and it went, you know, it went wrong in the details there, because everyone wanted to have their say. Hugh, you have appeared from nowhere, like the you know, the magical man that you are. What have you got to say?
I just wanted to say, you know, in my time in a previous life, I have actually killed quite a few bees. And you know, I'll stick my hand in the air along with everybody else. I've dumped jugs and jugs of Vicam down chimneys, and I've set smoke generators up chimneys, and I've sprayed swarms with muscatrol. You know, literally swarms that have just been hanging on trees that would be easy for a beekeeper to take. And you know, somebody said, look, we got 100 tons of cement here now to pour today. We want them gone now. We can't wait for a beekeeper. What are you going to do? Kill them. But I would say quite categorically now, I just do not believe that it's worth the hassle, the bad press that you may get, and just like Sean's drain job, the loss of sleep, the worry. It is far easier for a small business. If you're a big business and you want to, you know, and you've got solicitors sat behind you and lawyers that are willing to fight your battles if it goes wrong, fine. But for a small, you know, 1-3 man band, for 120, 150, whatever you want to call it, quid, it really is just far easier just to walk away. And if the customer ultimately doesn't like it, tough titty.
So I do have a question for the three of you. In fact, one statement and one question. Okay. Number one, I do love the fact that out of everyone we've brought on tonight who has been all camp pro bees, you have all been people that have killed bees. Now, Muggins over here, who has been elected to take camp kill bees, has never killed a bee colony in my life. So this is great. I'm loving this.
Did your bees survive winter?
My bees did survive winter, yes.
Oh, so you didn't kill them.
Doing very well. I haven't directly killed bees. Not yet, anyway. So with this, what I want to say is, right, I'm going to tell you a bit of a story. And Clive, I hope you're going to nod away and agree with me here. So during COVID, a lot of people were confined to their houses, and there was a lot of people going to social media. There's a lot of people looking to this. We've become a lot more aware of our surroundings in the sense that we suddenly saw that there was, you know, fish in Venice because the water wasn't being churned up. Suddenly you could see across the streets of Tokyo because there wasn't the same amount of air pollution. And people became a lot more environmentally conscious, and a lot of people took up beekeeping, or should I say more specifically, people took up bee having. It wasn't necessarily beekeeping. They liked the idea of having bees. Now, bees, honeybees, and we keep saying this, there are something like 270 species or 250 species or something like that of bee in the UK. Yeah. One of which is the honeybee. The other 200, there's about 250 social species solitary species, and 24 social species, which are the bumblebees, and then 1 species of social, which is the honeybee. And the honeybee is not a native animal to the UK. It is, to all intents and purposes, a livestock animal. It is an insect, but realistically speaking, it is not different from a cow, a pig, a sheep, or a chicken, in the sense that it is something that is artificially reared within the UK to produce a product which is honey and wax and propolis, if you so wish. Now, during COVID, a lot of people had bees, and they had bees badly, and we suddenly got this spike of feral honey colonies kicking out there. But not only that, honeybees are very, very good at collecting honey. They are not nearly so good pollinators as our solitary bees. Our solitary bees, because they're visiting a lot more flowers, and actually some of the flowers they're visiting are specific to that species of solitary bee, okay? The honeybees, and especially the increased volume of honeybees, has had a negative impact on the number of the number of honeybees has had an impact in the number of solitary bees that we have had, because they are outcompeted. 50,000 honeybees in a hive will easily outcompete the 200 or 300 solitary bees that you have living in someone's lawn. And at that point, do we not then have a duty of care to reduce and manage these extraneous colonies as a result of humans having bees, not keeping bees? And we should be bringing that number back down to readdress the balance of the ecosystem. Clive.
Asian hornet will do that for us.
Oh, you said the word.
Oh no!
I
That's it, I'm
shake
off.
my head at you. That was a low blow, Clive.
Sorry.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, but very honestly, I mean, it is a genuine question to you guys. Do we not have a duty of care to actually manage bees?
There's
We don't.
250,000 managed colonies in the UK. The Central London Beekeeping Association, I think it is, regularly put posts up and write articles on how dense the populations are in London. So hence why London has so many bees in buildings. Yeah, I can't agree with you anymore, Alex, that, you know, there is a large population. Do we have yeah, it's a difficult one. If we go on,
No, what? No, I wasn't going to butt in, but I said something to the guys earlier about this new word called bee washing. It's the same as greenwashing. All of the major manufacturers like Lidl and Asda, I don't know if you've noticed today, Lidl have brought out a bee beer, which is to help bees if they're in need of extra sustenance, because they're bee washing, which is how can we say, just promoting, look at us, we are so great, we love bees, that the whole general public have just taken up bees as their you know, they really are, you know,
well, the general public have definitely taken bees to heart. I mean,
yeah,
the
it's
new
not a bad thing.
BPA advert has got bees at the very beginning of it. I don't know if anybody's clocked that one. There are bees at the front beginning of that, and as you say, Alex, bees are livestock in the same way as sheep, pigs, sheep, and cows. You've then got to look at, you know, where does welfare for that livestock start and where does it finish in feral colonies?
Isn't it something Serene said that got to remember that a bee is essentially just a wasp that has forgotten how to hunt?
She did say something like that, didn't she? And yeah, it's a very good point. They've lost their predatory appetites, and they've taken to, you know, robbing from flowers to all intents and purposes. It's interesting you mentioned London, because that's something I think we've all been very guilty of it in this podcast so far. When we've been talking about bees, we've been in our head thinking about the old country cottage out in the suburbs, out in the middle of nowhere, that's got them coming in and out of the roof. What happens when you get a feral colony inside, let's say, an air brick of a skyscraper. You know, you go into central London, and I'm sure it will happen. You get one of these big mega structures. Who do you turn to then and say, hey guys, I know this building, you know, going up 20 floors. How do you fancy if I'm going to take a section of your lower ground out? Just to. What happens
you
there?
look at doing it from inside.
Okay, that is too much of a quick and reasonable answer for me to be happy with there. I was expecting a debate. How dare you hit me with logic and reason, asshat. Yes, you come at it from inside.
Just got another sort of observation. Isn't it funny for a pest control podcast? Actually, how many episodes have been about bees?
Yeah.
Really, you know, and people think we don't care about things and we don't care about bees. So for whatever this podcast is about, you know, killing bees, do we kill them? Don't we kill them? You know, it's surprising how time and time again we've shown actually how much we do care about bees and how much we do consider the environment.
And I think it's we're almost bee washing ourselves here, aren't we? It's easy to talk about bees because people understand bees, but bees are not just the only animals we care about. There's a plethora of animals out there under the umbrella of pest management, which we do more to try and preserve than we do to try and destroy.
I think bees are an inherent look into your mindset regarding the world as a whole. They epitomize that.
Sure.
They do.
Zeno the Stoic said that. That's very philosophical, Sean. I'm loving this.
No, it is. Like, everything else you look at, but we know that I think bees have a sort of mythical sort of theory about them because one, they're a stinging insect, so really we should detest them, but we get to see through that spiky exterior to see the benefits that they produce. And the honeybee epitomize, well, 99% of the public think that bumblebees are honeybees anyways. They don't know what a honeybee looks like. Do you know what I mean? Like, so they see them and they go, these spiky, horrible things that we should be scared of, we need them and we're going to love them, care for them and look after them. And they sure are everybody's love of and understanding of where we are at. And that's why I feel like it's so important that we keep pushing, because it's the first of many things, isn't it? But Hugh raises the best point. Who is it that turns up and goes, you can't get them out of there, you need them killed? Beekeepers. Who is it that turns up as a general rule? And there is beekeepers within the UKBR, but as a general rule, who is it who turns up and goes, we don't use chemicals against them? Pest controllers? But pest controllers are the sadistic killers who murder stuff, and beekeepers, as a general rule, are the academics who love and care for the environment. But this goes back to my initial thing, and you will see it over and over again. The reason why beekeepers, I believe, suggest euthanasia is because they assume the risks, they assume the problem for the customer. You're the first person there. There is a pressure put on them to be an expert and to tell and to give them the solution they want. And they look at it and they go, well, it's expensive to get it removed. So I think what you should do is you should have it killed. And they get their ego kick because they are the expert. They get the customer going, well, okay, then if I must, because it's going to save us a few quid. So they're very happy. And then it comes the pest controller who turns around and goes, that's not really it, is it? You know, we've got to be thinking a little bit bigger and a little bit deeper than doing that. And what Clive says is true. Beekeepers have had absolutely no training at all in removing bees from buildings. So why are we asking them to, you know, if you had a rat problem in your garden, you would not go to Billy in the pub who has a 2-2, who shoots tin cans, and ask him for how to deal with a rat problem on a grain farm that was out of hand. Because you'd be like, mate, it's your hobby. You don't know what you're doing. You're not a professional. You need to get a professional in. And that's what they're doing when they go to bed.
You say you wouldn't do that, and yet people do all the time.
I just want to come in on the cost thing, guys. And I just want to elaborate on what people consider it to be expensive. But I worked for a medium-sized regional pest control company. When I started doing bee removals for them, it was about 18 months down the line, and the boss came to me and he said, "Do you know what? You've turned what we charged for back then, £90 job, into something that's earning us hundreds, thousands, instead of that." And he was much happier earning that. And we've got to remember, at the end of the day, we're all in this as business.
The thing is about the cost question is, how many of us go into a customer's and say, look, we could use bait and it's going to cost you less than it's going to cost to trap them. So, but if we trap them, it's more environmentally friendly. It's not gonna stink your house out. And they go, oh no, we'll pay them. We'll pay extra. We'll pay the extra for that. So when cost comes into, and then if they turn around and say, well, actually, we want them dead. You don't care how, we just want them dead. And then we come out with the T's and C's and say, right, if you want them dead, you're gonna accept that the house may stink. There's nothing we can do about it. Da 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 da. Where's the difference between that and the bees?
I had 2 clients last week, and both occasions, I said to them, I might not be the guy for you. I'm going to be quite expensive. Here's a telephone number for somebody who does this sort of thing a little bit cheaper. So there's bee removers out there that will do them fairly cheaply. And both clients have come back to me and said, you know what you're doing. We've seen your report. We thank you for your advice. When can you book us in?
Yeah.
This is something I've been harping on for a while, which is the art of negotiation. And anyone I've done some articles on it, I've talked about it, I've got preach about it. In both of those instances, neither of those examples, you've both said that the pinch point and the discussion's been around price. It hasn't. The discussion's been around how you present that argument to the client. Clive, you have a better report. You're showing your due diligence. You're showing your value and your worth. Hugh, you've basically turned around and said you've explained to them the pros and cons, and you've allowed them to come to their own decision. It's negotiation in this industry is a sadly underused tool, but there we go. Right, back to bees though, because and I think we are going to talk about this for a little bit longer. But back to the bees. Sean, you said you had 3 other things that you were very keen to bring up. And while we've got Hugh and Clive just sat in the wings here.
No, so we've covered a few of them, and he said one of them was the entry points. That's a massive thing for me, blocking entry points. There is something I want to warn people about, so I don't know if this will show or not. It's another share. So imagine you go to and you decide you're going to kill a colony and you're going to spray it. So if I show you this one here, this is the thermal of a. This is the job that you would have spoke about. This is a care home. Every single resident suffers badly with learning disabilities to a point where they couldn't be removed from it. The bees had got nasty, and they wanted them out. That's about 12 to 13 meters up that window. It's a massive old home which has been thing. So we ended up managing to get up there and take a thermal. And this was going to be one of the questions. How do you treat it? The bees are entering the cheek of the window at the very top, the flat roof, where it joins with the apex roof. Like, how do you kill that? How do you spray that colony? The truth is that colony is not even where that heat source is. That heat source was the sun. We found out later. We went up there because we had the scaffolding, and we went up. Once we got up close and personal with it, that colony was not there. And I've got videos to show you. It was on top of it in the very small piece of apex roof, which runs away up the back out of that dormer window. So spraying that, treating it. And then it comes down to cost. So as Clive says, you do your first treatment, it fails. And you're like, I don't understand why that's failed. I've got no idea, because I can see where they are. but it's not. It's just heat. And I set this whole job up to remove it off the basis of that colony being there. We had to figure it out as we went along that one. It was a proper learned
Yeah, but Sean,
experience.
you
Yeah.
said about, you know, your first treatment and you go off the heat. Most people just look at the entrance point from
And
a,
spray, yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, they
No.
don't do that level of
you,
surface.
nobody's back along. Sorry.
Yeah.
You wouldn't look at that and have a flare and put it up there. You'd go, oh yeah, they're going in that hole up there, aren't
Yeah.
they?
This is what I'm trying to avoid.
I can get up there with a DR5 and I can put a whole DR5 worth of dust in that hole, and then
Yeah.
it's like, shit,
Yeah.
that didn't work, did it?
Yeah. Those bees were like up and right and then back. So your dust would have just ended up all over your roof. You wouldn't have treated it. But then, so your first treatment fails. They pay you for your first treatment, but it fails. So you come back, you do a second treatment. Who's paying for this now? So this is your time, care, and attention. There is bees that have picked that powder up and they've taken it in, and now it's poorly. It's going to get robbed. So you run that risk. Or eventually, what happens is they get put in touch with me, and I'd look at it and I go, all right, yeah, it needs taken out. But now you've paid for 1 or 2 treatments which haven't worked. You've now got to pay for the removal, and you've got to pay for the disposal of the hazardous waste. So like when they talk about the costs of a treatment, of a chemical treatment going wrong, are way in excess of the costs of a removal. So you may feel like you are doing that customer the best job that you possibly can and you're saving them money. But as Clive said, they are now coming to members of the UKBR to sort out the problems of chemical treatments which haven't went right. So you are going to cost that customer. And then it comes down to that old thing of who's responsible.
It's not up to us to decide whether the customer can afford to drive a mini Metro or a Ferrari. It's their choice which they go for.
And this is the thing, like we want to be seen as professionals, want to be seen as specialists. And you're like, okay, well, you can deal with this properly and be a specialist and have a good business off the back of it. Or you can be a window cleaner and spray some stuff in the holes. And we're like, we need to hang on to this window cleaning behavior. Like, why?
I just on this completely different, but on bees again. We had a customer and been going to them for quite a long time. They phoned us up and they said, we've got bees in our chimney. And I said, I'm really, really sorry. We don't do bees. We don't touch bees at all. Anyway, about a week later, a review popped up on somebody else's page. This pest controller helped us when everybody else wouldn't. Other pest controllers we have used for years just ditched us like there was no tomorrow. And it was like, okay, should we have helped them? Shouldn't we have helped them? But you know, it could have gone so wrong that it was just not worth us doing it. It's just not worth it. I don't believe it's worth it.
But can you not? Can at least people see what I'm saying? We are screaming out to be recognised as a professional industry. We get given this lifeline to be a professional industry, and we're like, still fancy fucking killing them with a little bit of chemicals because that's professional. It's not professional. It's not professional.
It's a quick meal out on a Friday night for £100.
Yeah.
Okay, Sean. So what if there was a chemical devised in the next round of BPR registrations that said clearly and in big letters for the use on feral honeybees in situations?
Professional. You're using that chemical in line with the label. You are absolutely professional. I promise you, I don't care about you killing honeybees. My worry and my risk and everything comes back to protecting your business, protecting your reputation. And as long as you are following the label, I've got no issues with it.
But it's not that, and it's not just that though, is it? Because let's face it, we don't follow the label on FICAM for killing wasps, where it says put an impervious sheet down underneath, you should wear a chemical suit, you should wear nitrile rubber gloves. Everybody chooses to ignore that part. So it's not just following the label, it's the actual consequences afterwards.
Yeah.
You know, the honey dripping down through the ceiling, the robbing bees, the mice going in after the wax comb. It's not just that we're not following the label, it's the actual possible consequences afterwards. It's just
This is my point, which is actually all of this discussion that we've ever had around the control of bees has always been, you know, oh, they say that this product can be used. You can say that this product can be used. Some people say this product can be used. I use this product. Actually, it's got F all and nothing to do with the product. Because as you said there, you could bring the best product out next week and it doesn't solve any of these issues that we've seen. Okay? Because the issues that we are talking about have nothing to do with either the correct or incorrect application of chemicals.
Yeah.
Or the right chemical, because you could take the chemicals we're using today and you could run them through HSE and you could get approval for bees. All that's changed is one word on the label.
I've remembered something I needed to ask you about, Lex, and this was one of the things which has been boiling my brains. So if we go back to Vulcan a little bit, so for anyone who doesn't know, Lex worked at Pelgar. He was responsible for the testing on Vulcan, so this is why I'm asking him. My understanding, and correct us where I'm wrong, in order to get the flying and crawling insect authorization that people use as the backdoor into treating bees, the chemical was never tested against bees, and it's tested against a number of them on a surface or something like that. What is the actual testing that's done in order to get that authorization?
So for back then, for national rules, you would have gone under PT18, so insecticides, and you would have applied it. Basically, you would have had to have shown efficacy greater than so many percent in a variety of situations. And for if you wanted to name a species on the label, kills houseflies, you would have to test houseflies. If you wanted to say kills Anopheles mosquitoes, you'd have to kill Anopheles mosquitoes. However, if you wanted to say kills flies, then you wouldn't necessarily have to do a test on the housefly. You could do one on Lucilia or Califoridae or anything else like that, and then you could make the broad label claim of kills flies. If you wanted to say kills flying insects, then it becomes a bit more complicated. You need to have 2 species of fly, and I think it's either 1 species of wasp or mosquito, depending on what. Sorry, 1 species of mosquito. And then if you wanted to say killed flying insects and their nests, you would then have to take several species of flying insect, one of which was social, let's say a wasp. So with that, the broad label claims can be from a diverse range of insects, which needn't necessarily be the insect you're testing on, because what you need to prove is it kills insects of a. So again, you can't just sort of like pick just phorid flies and fungus gnats and the rest of it. They have to be flies of a certain size. So for crawling insects, you have to pick a big cockroach and a little cockroach to prove that, because they both act in different ways.
But the reason why I ask is I'm guessing that what they don't do is put 10,000 cockroaches on 1 square meter with a dosage rate of 10 grams per whatever. And of course, when you are looking at treating, so that dosage rate of 10 grams per square meter, whatever Vulcan was in order to treat a number of flying and crawling insects. That dosage rate surely would need to be an awful lot higher, and a lot more testing would need to be done if you're looking at killing 50,000 honeybees over a 2 square meter area.
And that's probably why they don't have a specific guideline for honeybees on that. But
So
for the control of, let's say, flying insects at rest, a fly, and we have, these tests have been done. What we do when we do those tests is we will take that insecticide and we'll basically, let's say, take for that 5 grams on a half a meter squared plinth. We put it in the middle and basically agitate it so it covered that whole plinth equally, and then we would place insects on top of that in various areas and proved that density, that dosage and that concentration was sufficient to do the job in that point. And it did, otherwise we would never have got those claims on the market.
I get that. The point I'm making is the dosage rates that are approved on the label will be for treating a hell of a lot smaller number of insects per square meter than you would ever find within a honeybee colony. So is it fair to ask pest controllers to use a chemical which has never been tested on bees or to the level that would probably be required against bees, on the understanding that it killed 10 cockroaches or 20 cockroaches or 100 cockroaches per half square meter, when in terms of bees at that maximum dosage rate, you could be looking at 10, 15, 20,000 bees.
Mm-hmm.
But I think
you ask me to. Yeah, sorry, you go for this. You.
No, I was
Sorry,
just going
can't
to
defend
say,
this.
haven't we? You know, we've all sort of come to the conclusion that actually, it doesn't matter what it says on the label, even if there was something that we could use. Is it really worth it?
No, I don't know. I tell you why I'm asking you, because I'm going back to the and this is my big bugbear, isn't it?
Because
Palgov
people will still.
So Palgov give us this statement where they go like, you know, it's not really been on the label, but you can do it on this, this, and this. But they're not being honest, are they? They're not saying, listen, it's never been tested against bees. It's never been tested at this rate. This could happen,
Right.
because they know that what's going to happen is pest controllers will hear that. They will buy it. They will go out. They will work it into a hole and go, well, Palgov said it was okay. But the repercussions of it are, if you use it properly in line with their dosage rate, even if you use it in line with their dosage rate, it would probably fail. And then you can't even use it in line with their dosage rate because you're asking to spray it into a tiny little hole. And I'll almost guarantee you 1,000,000%, if you speak to Palgov and say, okay, you've said we can, how do we use this against these?
So,
they'll go,
yeah,
can we just say, there are other permethrin products on the market other than Palgov.
Thank you. But I believe the reason they've done this, and I will defend this to an extent, the reason that they have left this grey area in here, as you have alluded to and Clive's alluded to before, it's to allow pest managers a legitimate and legal means to have a rescue plan in place. If you take that bit of if you turn that grey area into a black and white, it really then, when you do need it on those, you know, that 1 in 1,000 times that it's all gone wrong and you need to have an option to bail you out, and I'm sure you've both been there in an instance.
It can be done. It can be done in line with the label. It can be done. It can't be done in line with the label. You've just got to know what you're fucking doing.
Have we I didn't get a chance, I got to admit. Have we looked at the Quartz label? Is Quartz still available?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure Lodi still defends an Azomethphos range, but it maybe it is.
No different, because basically it's still going to end up with the same outcome, dead bees. And is it still worth it?
No.
So I just didn't want to sort of single out Palgov Vulcan unfairly, should we say?
I have to say, and they've been very good to actually sort of like actually.
And we have to say, at least.
Let's be fair. Vulcan is the only chemical that people are going to use against bees.
And they have come out and said it, whereas like you said, Sean, there have been other people that have been like, well, you can do it. You can.
Yeah. Other manufacturers.
How's
absolutely.
It go?
Come over here. I've got some stuff you can use. And I was like, all right, how do you use that then? And then the whole tone of the conversation changed. It was like, oh, fuck.
Like I say, I believe a lot of this ambiguity in labels is not to give people carte blanche to do it. It is to allow people to have a reasonable opportunity to create a escape plan in the necessity they can do so and remain, you know, under a semblance of law.
Is this not the grey area that lots of manufacturers and suppliers speak about, that if you went to court over it, that this grey area could be interpreted as long as you've done everything you can, then
Listen, I promise you now, I've spent a lot of time in the box. A lot of time in the box. And the last thing you want is some fucking bloke who is incredibly clever, who has sat there and read stuff up, asking you the questions, and he knows the answers that he wants and he can get them out of you. You have to be absolutely fucking bomb-proof to answer them questions. And if he turns around and says, okay, no bother, how much did you use? Where did you use it? Because he'll come and speak to someone like me or Clive or whatever it is. He'll find out that information. And you're sitting there as a one-man band going, I sprayed it into that hole. All right, how much did you spray in and how did you calibrate that? Well, just pull the trigger. All right, yeah. Okay, yeah. And could you tell us about the internal walls of a flue and how they are built? No, you're an idiot.
This thing comes back to and this comes back, as I said at the very beginning, to your due diligence. Okay, we use that word. I throw that word around a lot, but in the scenario you've just given there, your due diligence is your justification in court for what you have done.
Yeah, but
Yes.
but Alex, in all fairness, and in a different life, when you've got 20 wasp nests to do and you're running around like a maniac and you get to a call, and I would not say that I've done it, but I will pass you a scenario, whereas you're looking up at a building and you're thinking, are they wasps or are they, do you know what?
Doing this, not wasps.
When they're 20, 30, 40 foot up in the air, and I would, I've done I've done hundreds, if not thousands, of wasp nests, and you've got the binoculars out and they're pinned against the top of the van, and you're going, I think they're wasps. I think they're wasps. And you get the wasp nest duster and you dust them, and then suddenly 10 minutes later they're fucking raining bees all down round you, and you're thinking, oh my fucking god.
This is very specific for a hypothetical situation.
It is, and you knock on the door and you say to the customer, mate, I think I made a mistake there. I think they're bees. But I tell you what, I'm not going to charge you as long as you don't tell anybody, and I'm going to fuck off.
I was never here.
So it's
for anybody watching this, there's quite an easy way to tell the difference between a wasp and a bee nest when you watch them through the binos. Bees fly with the legs down, wasps fly with the legs up.
Yeah.
I was genuinely expecting a joke then. I have to say, not more anything else. I was expecting some kind of pun there. Not for you to slap us with knowledge.
The hang of honey down will be tucked up tight. That's what we look for.
Like that.
Yeah. Wasp bees are dunny.
Yes, but it's still when it is quite a high building. You honestly, you're still like, God, I've been here 20 minutes now looking at these bloody things. God, I just fucking kill it.
Yeah. So with that, with the admin, and I'm going to make another argument here, again, back to the due diligence. You argue there that was a treatment by accident because you treated that animal to the best of your knowledge. To the best of your knowledge, it was a wasp, not a bee. However, was that to the best of your knowledge? Could you not have employed a bit of technology? Could you have not put not back
Alex,
then, of course. I'm not talking. I'm talking now.
This was before the internet.
Yeah. Well, but you're older than the Stonehenge, so probably back then you were just sure. Okay. My point being, sorry. My point being is this day and age, that we have technology, we have tools, we have the ability to remotely view these areas. There are cameras that you can attach to the end of your lances and poles. And so with that then factors into your due diligence. This was definitely a wasp nest, or now I can see it as bees. I'm not going to do anything about it. It still all rings back to this due diligence. I'm getting as sort of like as squeaky as Sean is about this. There is nothing there's no situation that you shouldn't be able to walk into or walk away from with the knowledge that you have as a professional. And there is no option that is not open to you so long as you aren't able to adequately and significantly justify that, the risks versus the rewards of what you are intending on doing. There's 100 ways to skin a cat. There's 100 ways to do these things right. Equally, there's 100 ways to do them wrong. It's down to you to be able to justify why you've picked one over the other.
Yeah. Agreed.
Take a video and zoom in.
Lovely stuff.
I think.
Right.
I
So
think
with
the
that,
thing, I think the thing is
sorry.
now with technology, you are less likely to mistake it. You can zoom in. You can take a video and zoom in. You can use your phone to zoom in and take a photo. I think that Neil's right there. There are a lot more options to you to check it out, rather than a pair of Zeiss binoculars that you've got kicking around underneath the.
Tell you something we do need to talk about before we go, because this is something we've missed. We often hear people putting things in the way which shouldn't really be put in the way. It's behind an asbestos board, so we had to kill it. It's in a listed building and they wouldn't let us take bricks out the wall. All these sort of things. We've been to survey a listed building today. Can be done. They do building work on listed buildings. There's people within the KPR. Yeah, Tim Wiley is brilliant with them. Grade 1 listed buildings, grade 2 listed buildings, that can all be worked on. If you buy a grade 2 listed building, then the risks are like it can be done. As a general rule, asbestos, it's going to be a commercial outlet that want you to do it, and they understand fully that it can be done. Clive done his asbestos removal course to work with like licensed stuff and things like that. The options are there. Don't ever put it in that it can't be done, because the customer is going to try and transfer that risk, that problem, onto you to be your problem. It's not your problem, you're the solution. That's all I would say on it.
I saw a good one the other week on the page, I think it was on a beekeeping page, where somebody said that they'd got one in a tree at a nursing home or something or other. And it was a risk to the occupants, obviously, as everything else. And, the option is to plug it up, seal it up, and remove the tree. We don't want to remove the tree. And you're not serious about the health and safety aspect of it.
Yeah.
Are you?
Yeah.
Simply not. The health and safety aspect has gone out the window. If you're arguing that there's a health and safety risk there, then the thing is to remove the tree. The reason that in the tree is it's decaying already anyway. So remove the tree and plant 2 more.
Yeah. But do you not think that the issue that we have with the cost is simply because the vast majority of jobs that pest control firms do, small pest control firms, is a small ticket item? Whereas if you go to Clive, does a lot of work for the big commercial boys, don't you, Clive? They fucking love it, don't they? They love it because they're used to giving big bills. So if you're an electrician and a house needs a rewire, it's not uncommon for you to turn out to someone and say, by the way, it's going to cost you $4,000 for me to solve this problem for you. If you're a roofer, if you're a builder, you don't mind putting those prices in. We are uncomfortable with it, I believe, or the people who are the only people in this industry who are liable to treat a honeybee colony, is a general rule, are the one-man bands, and they are uncomfortable with asking the cost because they are so used to asking for between 70 and 200 quid. That's all it is. The cost thing, it's in your head. Sorry, Hugh, go on.
Ryan went to a call today, one of our contract clients, and he was talking to somebody on site, and he said, Ryan was like, oh God, we've been messed around today. And he said, we had somebody on site last week. They had to wait 3 days to get to the required location, and they were sat here for 3 days waiting. They were charging £1,500 a day, and they had to wait 3 days to get to their particular place where they had to work, and nothing was thought about it. It was just
Yeah.
And on the flip side of that, I once saw a wonderful Twitter post back in the day where a guy was having an absolute hissy fit because he'd phoned someone up, mouse in his house, phoned someone up, and they'd offered him, a very reasonable 3-part treatment that was coming in to, I think, about £150 a visit or whatever it was. And this guy was just like, do you remember this quote? The quote literally went along the lines of, how much? It's not a fucking Bengal tiger. And that was the exact line. And again, so you the sparks in your house. Oh God, electricity is scary. I could touch a live wire and I could vaporize into a pile of ash. My gas could, murder me in my sleep through carbon monoxide or just exploding. There 100 other things that go wrong with that. Mouse in the house, you're going to charge me how much? It's a fucking mouse, mate. I could do that.
I said it was a mouse, not a fucking tiger. That was it, wasn't it? I said it was a mouse, not a fucking tiger. Yeah, it was funny.
It's funny, but it kind of like shows the fact that people, we're right down here, and the problem is we're a crisis industry, and because we are a crisis industry, as Anna said last week, in so many respects, we feel guilty to basically ask for money when someone is in crisis, because, as you say, we take the responsibility of their problems on our shoulders.
Think of it this way: do you think Virgo, Ecolab, Rent-A-Kill, any of the big ones are going to walk out and euthanize honeybees with Vulcan? Be honest. I can pretty much assure you now that they are not doing it. They understand the reputational damage. They also understand that they can make money through subcontracting to Clive, to other bee removers, etc. They see the bigger picture. The only people who are running around.
But let's say, and again, I'm going to go back to this hypothetical here. Next week, product launched, Bee Killer Extraordinaire. Fully registered for use. Do you think they would then use that? Do you think Rento would be like, right, there we go, we don't need to subcontract out anymore. We're going to bring it in-house. Every technician's going to have a little puffy pack of this stuff because it's legal and it's not.
To be fair, Rento didn't do them even when Bees was on the Firecam label, did they?
I worked for Rent-A-Kill for 10 years and I did 2 wasp nests.
Okay.
But it's true, isn't it? Like the big firms, the ones who are making money at this game are not killing bees. It's the little firms.
Is that because you say that's a reputational thing, but at the same time, Hughes just said they didn't do wasps, didn't they? Is it a reputational thing, or is it simply just the fact that they are not equipped to do 100 small call-outs in a day? They're looking at contracts, they're looking at larger, premises.
It's too much hassle.
It's too much hassle. It's not an ethical thing.
Yeah, but go on, Clive.
So I work for a number of nationals, and it's surprising how many of their clients come back and want to know exactly what's happened with the bees, where the bees are, where they're going to, can we get any honey from, and there's a whole series of articles in the organisation's newsletters. It's good PR.
Yeah,
it's good PR, and the big companies have seen that.
But here's the next thing. Imagine you turn up to a homeowners, and now you've watched this podcast, you understand the downsides to doing a chemical treatment or the risks that are involved in it. And you turn around to them now and you say, listen, here's the truth. As I say, here's the truth as Sean sees it, not as you say it, as Sean sees it. We could consider a chemical treatment. There's nothing on the market that has bees on the label. I don't know anything, and no chemical manufacturer will come forward and tell us how to use a chemical against them or a chemical that has been treated against them. That being said, if we go down the grey area, because I think we can get away with it, and we treat them, we're going to have to get up there and we're going to have to get everything sealed up. Or we might end up with honey in the ecosystem and in the food chain, which we don't want. That being said, if we do, the bees can no longer regulate the temperature, and there is a chance, it's a small chance, but it's a very real chance that you could end up with honey running through your walls and through your chimney and onto your floor. And I'm not going to be responsible for that. I'll charge you 150 quid, but you assume the risks. How many of your customers would go, that's a fucking brilliant risk for 150 quid? I can tell you now, the vast majority of them is none. They'll either live with them or they'll get them removed. That's what will happen. And I know because I've been there, I've done it, seen it, got the t-shirt.
No idea what to follow on from that. There is so much to discuss within the whole tropes of this, and we've been talking about it for almost 2.25 hours now. So those of us that are still with us, very well done. You definitely have earned your basis points for tonight, and definitely your BPCA reflective learning. This will not be the last time we talk about bees, I have no doubt. Oh, sorry, Hugh. I'm sorry, Hugh. This is the last time we were talking. I promise you, you won't have to do another bee promotional push.
No more bees.
As producer. No
Just
more bees.
one
No
more Asian hornet.
That's it. Just one more Asian hornet
to announce.
And more, we're done.
How many?
And it's been really interesting, and I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've come aside. We've the thing is we've almost come full circle. We came with an opinion. We've talked around all of the points, or a lot of the points that we've seen there, and I think we've come back largely to the same opinion, which is just because you can, and just because it is an option, doesn't necessarily mean that you should, or that it's the best way to do something. That being said, we do need to keep that option open for instances where there is a necessity to do that thing in order to preserve public health. But that should be, as always, as the statement from Palgar said, or that was a statement, specifically the correspondence from Palgar said, only ever in the very last resort, and only ever in situations where there is a significant and unavoidable risk to public health and safety. And we need that little bit of grey area in there. But for the other 999 times, we do it this way because the risks do not outweigh the rewards. The risks of contamination or the risks of damage to the building, you simply can't control. And I think that's the long and the short of it. And there are some social and economic hurdles that we need to overcome and discuss with our clients. But it's down to our discussion at the end of the day, isn't it? It's how we frame those particular issues. That is how we are going to sell these particular treatments. And that's what we need to get better at. Or need to get better at collaborating with. But that is my last word. That's Lex's last word. Oh shit, that sounds good, doesn't it?
what was the name of the person at Palgar who produced that statement saying that we can kill him?
It wasn't a statement.
It was, yes. I mean, very clearly, it was my old boss, and he was doing me a favor by explaining it.
All right. Yeah. Will he come on and talk to about it then, or not? Or will we?
I can ask him, and he is. My old boss from Palgar is a phenomenally knowledgeable guy. He's the second half of his professional career has been in pest management, and before that he has worked in a number of other pharmaceutical industries. So his actual knowledge of the science behind a lot of these things is amazing. It really is. He would be a really good guy, and you'll have to forgive me because I'll nerd out. He's also Scottish, so he does have a little bit of a sort of like Scottish brogue as well. So bro, I like brogue. You can go with wang. We can talk about his Scottish twang. You say, not wang. Okay, fair enough. There we go. But before we sign off, Clive, Hugh, last words on the podcast.
Come get some training if you want to learn how to do bee removal. Sorry, cheeky plug, but yeah.
There we go.
And why don't we collaborate and look at making a bee awareness course?
Yeah, collaboration by far and away, more to be had in collaboration and competition. And as you say, and as I was alluding to before, let's treat bee removals like any of the other specialisms that we have in our industry. If you're going to go on a course to go and look for sewer unicorns, you go on a course to look for sewer unicorns. If you're going to take bees out of walls, do a course. If nothing else, you have a bit of paper at the end of it. I assume you give everyone a bit of paper, Clive. There we go.
Can't lie. Do you know, that's that's two of the three questions in it. Who should we get on? Give a shameless plug, and then the third thing, have you enjoyed your time? Well, I'm going to answer that one tonight. I think that this format has been brilliant.
It's been really nice actually having people being able to jump in and out. And James is still here, and thank you to James for actually having the courage, literally jumping in at both feet, sitting in, talking to And these podcasts, you know, we have a good number of people listening live over 3 various outlets. But, you know, we all see Sean Hugh and I see the metrics after this. Hundreds of people in the UK and more probably worldwide listen to each of these podcasts on all the various catch-ups and mediums. So yes, not to put anyone off coming onto it, but well done, James, for sort of like just launching in there with honesty, openness, and you know, just the rest of it. So there we go. Wanted an excuse to come on for ages. Well,
As a
there we
thought
go.
process, might be a good guy to get on to talk about setting up a business in the very early days, trials, problems, tribulations. You know, we'll always go for industry experts. It might be very nice to have someone who
Maybe we'll do that. Put that in the calendar for a couple of weeks' time. Just have everyone's thoughts and experiences and feelings as to setting up and, you know, how you felt, you know, financially, emotionally, you know, psychologically, all of the above. But there we go. Right. What was that, Clive?
Who have we got coming on? You said who, you know.
I don't know. I think
Sean
we're going to keep it as a surprise. We've got Sean Taylor, haven't we? Pest Force, Sean Taylor coming on next week, which will be great. And then I think the next major booking we have is we've got Colin Harrison from Pest to Kill coming on. And we've got some others. We've got some others as well. We're going to keep those up our sleeves. We're not going to give the whole game away just yet.
Good. All right then, folks.
Lovely stuff.
Good night.
Well, from that,
Have a lovely
let's say
day.
goodbye. I will see
Stop
you all
on,
later.
boys. Stop on, stop on, stop on.
Bye, bye, bye. Oh, hang on. Let's
Right
clear the banner. And bye, bye, bye.
Thank you for listening to the Beauties and Beasties podcast.